Morning. I get to go to a place today that I've been dying to go to for a long time. It's been a long time coming. So I've been wanting to go to Camp Toccoa, the original home of Easy Company, Band of Brothers. And today we get to do that. So I'm very excited to see Camp Toccoa, the amazing preservation work that they're doing there. Probably all too aware of the challenge of running Currahee this morning. So let's get it.
I know we're going somewhere into the danger zone.
Now in May of 2017, the good people here at Camp Toccoa were able to acquire a C-47. It gives you an appreciation for what the paratroopers were jumping out of on D-Day, as well as Market Garden. Also, if you ever get the chance to go inside of a C-47, just look how thin the walls are on that aircraft.
Fading love, this night will be okay.
How neat is it that Popeye's daughter and son-in-law donated their time to reassemble something from Popeye's own experience at Camp Toccoa, his own history. That's really, really neat. So it actually is kind of wacky that I am here on the exact regimental headquarters road of Camp Toccoa. The really cool thing about the history that's here is that these brand new barracks that they've constructed, right, there's gonna be 4 of them, 2 are up, but it's all made out of the original wood of the original barracks. It's an incredible story, and we'll get into the story in a little bit, but they're reusing some of the actual original material that was once here for Camp Toccoa back in 42, 43, 44, 45, and they're essentially assembling it all back together. This is really, really cool work of preservation and preserving history. So each of the 4 barracks is going to be for the individual parachute infantry regiments, the PIRs. This one, the very first one that they built and reassembled, if you will, is for the 506th, Easy Company, Band of Brothers. 22 original building panels and 22 original windows. And it says open, so we're actually going to hop in here and actually check it out. I hope there's no one sleeping. Now, how cool does this barracks look? I mean, it just gives you just such a kind of a weird little insight into how these guys lived. Obviously, like I said, Easy Company was not here when these barracks would have been. When Easy Company was here, that would have been more of a tent city.
I wanna go there someday.
So what's really neat about all this stuff, and as we just found out, 3 miles up, 3 miles down, running the Currahee, and you know what? I know exactly how those dudes felt. Well, kind of like how they felt. I got a pretty much better idea than just watching the miniseries, because I just went up and down it this morning. The reason why they are building the barracks, not only because they happen to come across the original barrack material, which is apparently a local. At the end of World War II, they were breaking all these barracks down, and the government said, hey, if if you break it down, you can have the lumber. I think you paid $25 for a barracks, for an entire barracks. And up until recently, you know, the last 10, 15, 20 years or so, a guy who tore down, I think, 4 or 5 barracks still had all the lumber, the original windows, just sitting in the shed. And so this is where the original materials came from. And it's worth remembering. This type of history is so worth remembering. We can't forget these guys. Or, you know, anyone from the airborne who trained at Toccoa. Now, how can I get one of these Currahee flags? What it says here is that the 506th PIR was activated July 20th, 1942 in Toccoa, Georgia. And they left Toccoa on November 15th, 1942. And Colonel Sink was the commander of the 506th. Another cool thing that they're doing here at Camp Toccoa is that the reason why all these bunk beds are here, not only because of the history, but also you can stay here in the barracks in a bunk bed. Picture you just saw there of this is Camp Toccoa right there, and believe it or not, when the 506, because they were the first regiment to be trained here, they did not have the luxury of barracks. They lived in what was called Tent City, and I'll actually point out where Tent City began, where it actually was situated. But yeah, they had Tent City. Their mess hall was tents. Their classrooms were probably tents, or they might have had a building for that. But there weren't many permanent structures here when the 506 trained. You had, I think, the PX, Regimental Headquarters, which the Regimental Headquarters, the actual building, is still here. It was the only structure left. So we're gonna make our way down that way, down the Regimental Headquarters road here, the open road that we just came across. But this is, I mean, does it get any better than this? I don't know. I don't know. Overall, really neat that this is here. And I'm gonna change the batteries out in the camera, and we're gonna head back outside and take a lift and move further into Camp Toccoa. These are the 2 foundations for the last 2 barracks that hopefully will be going up soon. Now, the 517th did train here at Camp Toccoa as well, and if you haven't seen the earlier episodes of mine when I'm at the Toccoa Military Museum, I do go into a little bit more detail about where the 517th was, but they did see about 150 days of combat throughout World War II, and they fought in Italy, southern France, part of Operation Dragoon. They took part in Battle of the Bulge, and then they fought in Germany as well. So this road that you actually see behind me here is the main regimental HQ road that was here during you know, 42, 43, 44, 45, when the actual Camp Toccoa was an active military post. Picture earlier that showed it as a tent city, that's where Tent City would have been, all along this fence line right here. This is where Tent City would have started, okay? And then this was the main regimental HQ road into Camp Toccoa, with the front gate being down that other end. So the only original building that remained since World War II, since Camp Toccoa, was Camp Toccoa here, and it was an active military post. The Regimental HQ building, this is it right here. This is original. Never got torn down, never got demolished. It had to get put back together. This is the original building. Also, down through those gates back there, that's actually where the actual guys would have started their Currahee runs, was through that gate, and actually links up maybe 1/4 mile up the Colonel Sink Trail. Now they do have inside the Regimental HQ building, they have kind of like a mini museum, as well as some artifacts that they found on the property, and I'm pretty sure they continue to find artifacts on the property. So we're gonna go head inside here and check this building out. That's where I'm at. That little white building in the background, Regimental HQ building. So cool to see that in the background of old pictures. They even have Richard Winter's, his certification as a certified parachutist, which is awesome. Hey Nix, they found the newspaper you were reading like 80 years ago. That's wild. This here is the proposed final product. Everything that they want to accomplish here at Camp Toccoa, what it could look like. Green space in the middle, which is probably where the tent city used to be, as well as it looks like an outdoor amphitheater. I mean, it just looks like a good place where you can learn history. Kind of a nice place to, you know, take your family and spend a weekend. Now, a lot of people probably don't know this, but Camp Toccoa did serve as a kind of a mini POW camp. I'm gonna have to look more into this, but that's interesting. This is Popeye Wynn's personal footlocker. Popeye's kind of everywhere on this camp. He's got, you know, his original footlockers here, as well as a guard shack that was built in his honor by his own family. Pretty neat to still see that connection even after all these years. This is an original Camp Toccoa door that was found on the property, and take my word for it, it's heavy. So this picture is of Easy Company, and as well as the rest of the 2nd Battalion. They did a march from Toccoa to Atlanta, which is about 118 miles away from each other, in just over 3 days. 3 days time. They marched in some really unusually cold weather, and they even have the citation of how well 2nd Battalion performed during that march. So this is a really neat piece of history. This is essentially the code of conduct. If you were a paratrooper and you weren't on base, you still had to act accordingly, essentially. The 511th did train here at Camp Toccoa, and they went and fought against the Japanese in the Pacific Theater of Operations. But they took part in the Los Baños raid to rescue over 2,000 POWs. And they ended up rescuing all the POWs with no fatalities. Simply amazing. So this is really cool that they actually have this here. This is an actual mess hall table. And this is the definition of if historical artifacts could talk and tell stories. I mean, who knows who sat down at this table? This could have been, you know, Alex Pankala, Skip Muck, Donald Malarkey. All these guys could have been sitting at this very table, probably complaining about Captain Sobel. Unreal that they have this here. Of course, the 506 trained here. This began on July 20th, 1942, and they had 2 combat jumps. Obviously, Operation Overlord in Normandy on D-Day, and Holland, which was in mid-September for Operation Market Garden. Next, that trained here was the 501st on November 15th, 1942, and they participated in the same 2 combat jumps that the 506th did in Normandy and Operation Market Garden in Holland. And of course the 511th that started here in January of 43, and they made 5 combat jumps, which is crazy. New Guinea, Leyte, Luzon, Okinawa, and on Japan. Now after World War II had ended, the 511th did become part of an occupation force on mainland Japan as well. So the 517th did begin training here at Camp Toccoa in March of 43, and they did make 1 combat jump in southern France, a part of Operation Dragoon. A nice little touching memorial here out front of Camp Toccoa. So if you ever do come here, make sure you don't neglect this area. This is pretty cool. So if you're ever in the area, or if you really just fancy a historical trip, Camp Toccoa has got to be definitely top of the list to stop by. I hope you enjoyed this content, and please subscribe to the channel as it really helps the channel out. And as for now, I will see you guys next week at the same time, same day, same channel.